They called me senile, took my ATM cards, and were signing papers for the old people's home in Lagos. But what they didn't know was that I owned everything they thought belonged to their late father. My name is Mama Adunni. I'm 74 years old. My children think I've lost my mind. Kemi says I forget to turn off the gas cooker. Tunde believes I can't remember which grandchild belongs to which of my 4 children. They speak Yoruba around me, thinking I don't understand their whispers about what to do with Mama. She's getting worse, Kemi told Tunde last week while I sat on my wooden stool peeling plantains. She asked me 3 times if I remembered to buy palm oil when we have 5 bottles in the kitchen. What Kemi doesn't know is I was testing her memory, not losing mine. That girl has been stealing my palm oil for 6 months to sell in her own small shop. For 8 months now, they've been treating me like a burden. Kemi moved my ATM cards to her handbag, so I won't lose them to scammers. Tunde changed the locks on my provision shop in the market until I feel better and can count money properly again. They even hired that lazy girl Blessing from next compound to watch over me during the day. But yesterday morning, I heard the conversation that changed everything. I was sitting under my mango tree pretending to doze when Kemi and Tunde started their usual whispering in the kitchen. Sunnyside Nursing Home called, Kemi said. They have space for Mama next month. How much? Tunde asked. 50,000 naira monthly. But we can manage it. How? We sell Mama's gold jewelry collection first. That should cover 6 months. Tunde laughed quietly. Good thinking. And after she's settled there, we renovate this old house. Those expatriate oil workers will pay us 400,000 naira monthly to rent it. Finally, Kemi sighed, some real money from this place. Daddy never made us rich, but at least his house will. They were planning my entire future like I was already in my grave. But here's what my brilliant children never bothered to investigate. The house they were planning to rent out? I bought every brick with my own money in 1987. The gold jewelry they wanted to sell? Every piece was purchased from my secret business profits over 30 years. The bank account they thought belonged to my late husband, Adebayo? I was the one who filled it, deposit by deposit, for 35 years. You see, while my dear husband worked his honest job at the brewery earning 800 naira monthly, I was building something they never knew existed. Every morning at 5 a.m., I would leave the house telling everyone I was going to morning prayers at the mosque. But instead, I walked 15 minutes to the other side of town, where I operated my real business. 3 palm oil processing stations in different neighborhoods. Cash businesses. Very profitable. Very quiet. I bought palm fruits directly from farmers at half the market price, processed them in my secret locations, sold the oil to big hotels and restaurants across Lagos. Pure business. No middlemen. No government wahala. Every month for 30 years, I deposited money into the account under my husband's name, because in those days, banks treated women like children. But the money came from my sweat, my planning, my work. When other wives were gossiping at afternoon gatherings, I was calculating profits and planning expansion. When other women were watching soap operas, I was visiting new customers and negotiating contracts. My husband Adebayo never knew. Good man. But he would have told me to stop and focus on cooking and children. He believed business was for men only. So I let him think his brewery salary paid for our comfortable life. Let him feel proud providing for his family. But every comfortable thing we had came from my secret work. The children's school fees at the expensive private school, my palm oil money, our first television and refrigerator, my profits. This house with 5 bedrooms and 2 parlors, I bought it cash from my savings. Even the small generator that made us the envy of the neighborhood during power cuts, my business income. For 30 years, I played the role of simple housewife while building wealth they never imagined. When Adebayo died 5 years ago, the children naturally assumed everything belonged to him. They mourned their father and praised him for leaving them such good inheritance. I let them believe it. It seemed easier than explaining 3 decades of secret business operations. But now they think I'm old and useless. Now they want to dump me in a nursing home and profit from Daddy's house. Time for them to learn the truth. That afternoon, while Blessing was dozing in the parlor and my children were at their own homes planning my future, I walked to my old room and opened my wooden trunk. Inside, wrapped in my old wrapper, were documents they'd never seen. Property deed for this house, my name only. Bank statements showing every deposit I made for 35 years. My signature. Business registration papers for Adunni Palm Oil Enterprises. My company. 3 land titles for the properties where my processing stations operated. My investments. And most importantly, my will. Written 5 years ago and updated every year since. The will that left everything to my youngest daughter Funmi, who married that poor teacher and moved to Ibadan. The only child who never asked me for money or complained about taking care of me. The will that left Kemi and Tunde exactly nothing. That evening when they came for dinner, I was ready. "Sit down," I told them after we finished the rice and stew. "I want to discuss your nursing home plans." Kemi and Tunda exchanged looks, probably wondering how I knew about their secret conversations. "Mama," Kemi started carefully, "we're just concerned about your health." "Stop," I interrupted. "Let me tell you about my health." I walked to my room and brought back the wooden trunk. "For 8 months you've treated me like I can't think properly, like I'm a burden you need to manage." I opened the trunk. "But before you send me to that nursing home, there are some papers you should see." I placed the property deed on our center table. Tunda picked it up first. His eyes moved across the page slowly. Then his face began to change. This says you bought the house." "Yes. But Daddy said..." "Your daddy never owned this house. I bought it with my own money in 1987. Kemi grabbed the paper from her brother. "This must be wrong. Daddy always said..." "Your daddy believed what I let him believe." I placed the business registration papers on the table. "Adunni Palm Oil Enterprises," Kemi read slowly. "Mama, what is this?" "For 30 years, while you thought I was just cooking and cleaning, I was running 3 palm oil processing stations. Very profitable business." Tunda's mouth was open. But we never knew, because I never told you. I showed them the bank statements, page after page of deposits. Thousands and thousands of naira accumulated over decades. Every comfortable thing you enjoyed growing up came from my business profits. Your school fees, your clothes, your food, even the money for your own businesses when you were starting out. The room was completely silent. "But Mama," Kemi whispered, "why didn't you tell us?" "Because you never asked. When your father died, you immediately assumed everything was his legacy. You praised him for providing so well, it seemed easier to let you keep that memory." I reached into the trunk one more time. "But now that you want to put me in a nursing home and profit from what you think is your inheritance," I placed my will on the table. "You should know who really owns what." Tunde picked up the will with shaking hands. As he read, his face went completely pale. "Mama, this says everything goes to Funmi." "Yes. But what about us? What about you?" Kemi started crying. "You're leaving us nothing?" "You already decided I was nothing. You made plans to lock me away and profit from my property. Why should I leave anything to children who see me as a burden to be managed?" Tunde stood up suddenly. "Mama, we can change the nursing home plans." "Too late. We were just worried about your safety." "You were worried about my property." Kemi fell to her knees beside my chair. "Mama, please. We made a mistake. We didn't understand." "You understood perfectly. You saw an old woman you thought was losing her mind, and you saw opportunity." I stood up and walked to the window. "But let me tell you what's really going to happen." I turned back to face them. "Tomorrow morning I'm calling my lawyer to make some changes, not to the will, that stays as it is, but to my living arrangements." "What do you mean?" Tunde asked. "I'm selling this house." Both of them gasped. "Selling it?" Kemi screamed. "But where will you live?" "I'm buying a smaller place near Funmi in Ibadan. She's been asking me to move closer for 2 years. Always said she misses having me around to help with the grandchildren." "But what about us?" Tunde asked desperately. "What about you? You both have your own houses, your own families. You made it clear you don't want me in your lives unless you're managing my decline." I walked back to the table and gathered my documents. "The house sale will happen next month. I'll move to Ibadan the following week. You have until then to find your own way." Kemi was sobbing now. "Mama, we're sorry. We were wrong. Please don't do this." "Sorry for what? For thinking I was senile? For planning to profit from my property? For treating me like a burden instead of your mother?" "All of it," Tunde said quietly. "We're sorry for all of it." I looked at my children, these adults I had raised and supported and sacrificed for. "You know what the saddest part is?" I said finally. They waited. "If you had just asked me how I was feeling instead of assuming I was helpless, if you had included me in decisions about my own life instead of making plans behind my back, if you had shown me respect instead of treating me like a problem to solve." I paused. "I would have happily shared everything with you. I would have taught you about my business operations. I would have helped you expand your own enterprises with my knowledge and connections." The room was silent except for Kemi's quiet crying. But instead, you chose to see me as a burden. So now you get to discover what burden really means. I walked toward my bedroom door. The house is being shown to buyers starting Monday. I suggest you start making your own plans. As I reached my door, Tunde called out, "Mama, what can we do? How do we fix this?" I turned back one last time. You can't. The moment you started making decisions about my life without including me, you stopped being my partners and became my enemies. But we're family. Family doesn't plot to warehouse their mother for profit. I went into my room and closed the door. That night, I lay in my bed thinking about consequences. For 30 years, I had protected my children by hiding my strength. I let them believe their father was our provider. I never taught them that women could be business owners and wealth builders. By trying to preserve their father's memory and their image of traditional family roles, I had raised children who couldn't see their mother as anything more than a dependent old woman. Maybe if I had been honest from the beginning, they would have learned to respect my capabilities instead of assuming my weakness. But it was too late for that lesson. The next morning, both Kemi and Tunde came back with their spouses and children. "Mama," Kemi's husband Bayo said, "please reconsider. We all want to apologize." Their children, my grandchildren, looked confused and frightened. "Grandmama," little Aduk asked, "are you really going away?" I picked up my youngest granddaughter and held her close. "Yes, my dear. Grandmama is moving to a place where people are happy to see her every day." "Can we visit?" "Of course. You can visit anytime your parents bring you." I looked at Kemi and Tunde. "Your grandchildren are always welcome, but their parents need to learn some lessons about respect first." Over the next 3 weeks, they tried everything. They brought gifts. They cooked my favorite meals. They offered to cancel the nursing home plans and let me stay. But it was all too late. The damage was done the moment they started making secret plans about my future. Trust, once broken, is not easily repaired. On my last day in the house I built, I sat under my mango tree one final time. Funmi had come from Ibadan with a small truck to collect my belongings. "Mama," she said, sitting beside me, "are you sure about this?" "Completely sure." Kemi and Tunde are devastated. Good. Maybe devastation will teach them what they couldn't learn from love. You know they're going to struggle financially without inheritance to depend on. Let them struggle. I built my wealth from nothing. They can do the same. Funmi was quiet for a moment. "Mama, can I ask you something?" "Why me? Why am I the only one in the will?" I smiled at my youngest daughter. "Because you're the only one who never asked me for anything. You married your teacher husband and built your own small life. You invited me to visit not because you wanted something, but because you missed me. But what if I disappoint you too?" "Then I'll change the will again," I laughed. "The beauty of making your own money is keeping control of where it goes." As we drove away from Lagos toward Ibadan, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months. peace. For the first time in 8 months, I wasn't being watched or managed or whispered about. I was making my own choices about my own life. That evening in Funmi's small house, as I played with her children and helped prepare dinner, I realized something important. Being forgotten isn't about age or memory loss. Being forgotten is what happens when people stop seeing you as a whole person. My other children had forgotten that I was capable, intelligent, and strong. They only saw an old woman to be managed. But here in Ibadan, surrounded by grandchildren who asked for stories and a daughter who asked for advice, I was remembered for who I really was. 6 months later, I received a phone call from Tunde. "Mama, how are you?" "Very well. And you?" "Mama, we've learned our lesson. Can you forgive us?" I considered his question carefully. "What lesson did you learn?" "That we were wrong to treat you like you couldn't take care of yourself." And that we should have respected your choices instead of making plans for you. And that we never really knew you at all. This was progress. Tunde, forgiveness isn't about forgetting what happened. It's about choosing not to let past mistakes destroy future possibilities. Does that mean? It means I'm willing to rebuild our relationship, but slowly and with new rules. What rules? Rule 1. I make decisions about my own life, always. Yes, Mama. Rule 2. If you have concerns about my welfare, you discuss them with me directly. No more secret conversations. Yes, Mama. Rule 3. You accept that your mother is still a capable businesswoman with her own money and her own plans. There was a long pause. Mama, can you teach us about business, the way you built everything? I smiled. Now that's an interesting question. 2 years later, I had taught both Kemi and Tunde about real business operations, not get-rich-quick schemes, but steady, profitable enterprises. Kemi expanded her small shop into a proper supermarket, using principles I taught her about customer service and inventory management. Tunde started a small transport business applying lessons I shared about cash flow and customer relationships. They both struggled at first, but they learned. More importantly, they learned to see their mother as a teacher instead of a burden. The house in Lagos was sold to a nice family with young children. I used part of the money to expand my palm oil operations in Ibadan. The rest I invested in my grandchildren's education funds. My will still leaves everything to Funmi. But now I also have business partnerships with Kemi and Tunde. They earn their inheritances through work instead of waiting for death. And every Sunday, all my children and grandchildren come to my small house in Ibadan for dinner. They bring questions about business, stories about their week, and gratitude for lessons learned. They no longer see an old woman to be managed. They see Mama Adunni, the businesswoman who built wealth from nothing and taught them to do the same. That's how I stopped being forgotten. Not by demanding respect, but by requiring it. Not by giving second chances, but by creating new opportunities to earn first chances. And not by forgetting what they did, but by showing them who I really was. Sometimes the best way to remind people of your worth is to take it away until they rediscover it for themselves. Sometimes being forgotten is the first step toward being truly seen. This story teaches us that respect isn't owed because of age or relationship. Respect is earned through actions and maintained through choices. Never let anyone plan your future without including you in the conversation. And remember, just because someone is older doesn't mean they're helpless. Some of us have been strong so long, we've forgotten how to show weakness. But we never forgot how to show consequences. What did this story teach you? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you have an elderly parent or grandparent, maybe it's time to ask them about their stories, instead of assuming you know their limitations. Don't forget to subscribe for more African tales that remind us who we really are.